Hey there. Today I want to talk to you about something that I saw on Joshua Fluke's channel the other day. And it's about the idea that even if you have a remote job, so many employers or managers are spending their day watching over you. So even if you don't have to go into the office, someone's still watching you all day long. So I thought it was quite an interesting topic. I know he was able to just scratch the surface in his 6-minute video, but I want to go over this article and talk to you in more depth and go through the whole entire thing and give you my thoughts on what I think about these employers watching you, even if you're at your own house. So the article is from resumebuilder.com, and the headline is 1 in 3 remote workers are watching you work from home on camera. And I'll have this article linked in the description down below. And basically it's saying that when everything first went down in 2020, many companies were taking their workforce remotely for the first time and investing in employee monitoring software to ensure employees were working as productively from home as they were in the office. And that's going to be the overall narrative here, because many employers apparently don't trust their employees, because why would the first thing that these companies do be to install monitoring software? I mean, literally, they're treating us like children who can't be responsible, can't do our work, and heaven forbid, we go unsupervised for a couple of hours. This article is going to go into even more detail, but just the overall thought process that the first thing we got to do when employees work from home is not make sure they have the right equipment, make sure they have the training, making sure everything's connecting right, making sure they have all the tools to do their job. No. How do we monitor and spy on them at their house? So this article is from last year, actually. But it's still quite topical. A lot of people saw Joshua's video, so I want to go more into it. It says, in March, Resume Builder surveyed 1,000 business leaders at companies with a primary remote and or hybrid workforce to find out how many still feel the need to monitor their employees 3 years down the line, and how this monitoring has affected productivity and attrition. So yeah, we're not even actually, I guess, talking about 2020 when everything first went down. Even 3 years into it, they hadn't built up trust from their employees enough to not have to go and monitor them. And the main takeaway from the 1,000 people that they surveyed was that 96% of remote companies use employee monitoring software. I mean, we all know that you can have surveys be misleading, misguided. I mean, you could even have official job posting numbers that are misleading. But to me, that makes a lot of sense. This feels like something that is quite accurate, unfortunately, because I wouldn't put it past 96% of employers to be monitoring you while you're working from home. It says the vast majority of respondents surveyed say their company uses at least some form of employee monitoring software. Of this group, 5% say employees are unaware that they are being monitored. Yeah, I mean, how do you not know? I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, oh, to use this software or this service, you have to read the privacy policy, the terms and conditions, all that kind of stuff, when that really shouldn't be the case. You should know 100% if you're being monitored or surveyed, especially if you're in your own home. I mean, that should violate all kinds of privacy laws. Just 10% of remote companies were monitoring employees pre-pandemic, while 37% started during the first year of the pandemic and 20% started monitoring within the past year. It's clear from our survey that there are still organizations struggling to manage their workforce post-pandemic, comments Chief Career Advisor Stacy Holler. The focus on hours worked versus actual productivity and the successful completion of timely projects seems to reflect the challenges management teams are facing when it comes to readjusting how they manage a remote workforce. The vast majority believe monitoring software has increased productivity. It would appear that investing in monitoring software is paying off. 97% of respondents, somewhat 34%, or strongly 63% believe that implementing the software has increased employee productivity. So here's the funniest thing. If you ever worked in an office setting in corporate America, You should probably agree with me that the employer's number one concern is certainly not the employee's well-being, but it's also not productivity. I mean, how many times do you see, oh, we're gonna go out for lunch, or can I call you into my office real quick, or someone stopping by your cubicle, because Lord knows none of us ever had offices in my generation, but like there's just nonstop interruption. Like all they do, these managers, is check on you and message you and stop by your office or chat with you at the water cooler or pull you in for a last minute meeting or invite you to a meeting that has no agenda and you don't even know if you're supposed to be there. Like it's example after example after example of wasting your time while you're in the office. Yet when you're working from home, working on your own schedule, now they want to do monitoring software. Now they want to make sure you're productive, because that doesn't jive with how productive you can be in office. Because unless you are fortunate enough to have your own office, which most workers will not be, you'll be in an open floor plan where not only your manager can come bother you, but you're gonna hear exactly what's going on next door. You're gonna hear about your coworkers' lunch plans, their marital issues. Like there is no privacy. You're basically just stuck out there in your cube, and you're just either on the phones calling away or you're trying to get work done, but there are endless amounts of distraction. So the fact that once you're working from home, now they're concerned about productivity when all they do is prevent you from being able to do a good job when you're in the office is quite comical to me. 37% require employees to be on a live video feed. When asked to list the ways in which their company uses monitoring software, the most common answers were monitoring web browsing and application use and blocking content and applications. Okay, that's completely fair. I mean, that would be the exact same thing that should happen when you're in the office. You shouldn't be able to just go onto Facebook on your work laptop during the day or really at all. So, I mean, that's fair. However, a surprisingly high percentage say they require remote employees to be on camera all day. Of this group, 93% say the live video feed is monitored, with the majority reporting that the person or people watching the feeds do so for 4 or more hours per day. Okay, now that is the first thing that I think is kind of crazy. Like they're monitoring you all day and you have to have your camera on. I mean, it's one thing for a meeting. I totally get it, because when you're on a meeting or a conference call, it's sometimes hard to understand what someone's saying if they just call in. It's also kind of difficult to read body language if you can't see someone, obviously. So there's a lot of pluses to jumping on a video call with your video on. But while you're just sitting there with your head down working, you have to have your video on. Is that telling us that in an ideal situation, your middle manager, your hiring manager would just be sitting there staring at you while you're at your desk? Because that's really, really creepy. But if that's what they're doing, if someone is spending over 4 hours a day watching you while you're working, and it's not even necessarily a video call or a meeting, that's really, really creepy. 7 in 10 say employees have quit over monitoring. Not all workers would accept being subjected to such close scrutiny. 69% of companies say that they've had employees quit because they didn't want to be monitored. Of this group, the largest percentage, 35%, say the company has lost 6 to 10 workers over this issue. In our study, it was found that folks had, on average, about 2 hours of non-productive time during the day. And I already told you my opinion. It's at least 2 hours of wasted work. You're lucky between meetings and quick asides and chit chat. You're lucky if you get an hour or two of work done per day. 3 in 4 companies have fired employees because of monitoring. 73% of respondents say their company has let go of workers because of data gathered from monitoring software. Of this group, the largest percentage, 34%, say 6 to 10 workers have been fired for this reason. 1 in 3 say employees spend an average of 3+ hours per day not working. Based on data gathered by the monitoring software, 1/3 of companies say their employees spend an average of 3 hours per day on non-work activities. Predictably, the most common time theft discovered was visiting websites or social media for personal use. But I think that just plays to the character of the people that you're hiring. And once again, like we talked about previously, if you're going through these days 5, 6, 7 rounds of interviews, you can't get a good grasp of somebody. Like, you don't have anyone in your hiring process that like is a good judge of character that can see, oh, maybe this person is going to be a hard worker or they're not. Like, are you really getting fooled and tricked and deceived that much? Or is it that now you're hiring people at such a ridiculously low pay rate that that's kind of what you get? You kind of get what you pay for? Because during the day, while you're in the office, I don't understand how people aren't seeing you going on Facebook. I know IT sees every single thing that you're doing. They're already monitoring your computer. Now, hopefully they don't have their camera on while you're at the office, but they're already monitoring. They should already know if you're using those kind of sites, and really they should already be blocked. But doesn't that just keep the honest out? Because if you know, all right, well, they're monitoring my software, they're monitoring my computer, they're looking at what I'm looking at, well, can't you just go on Facebook or Instagram on your phone? I mean, come on. And if someone is not getting their job done, can't you just like lay off that person? Why does it have to be everyone suffers because a couple of people don't know how to work remotely? And especially nowadays, now I know this is from last year, but in 2024, like either you know how to work and you're a good worker or you're not. I mean, we're in an employer's market right now. So if someone is not getting their job done, there's easily 10 to 20 people who can easily replace that person. So just hire someone who is doing their job, who is meeting deadlines. I mean, you can have a little bit of a quicker turnover. You don't just have to keep someone who doesn't know how to remote, and it shouldn't punish the people who are doing a good job remote, are getting a lot of work done. I mean, I always got more work done in a remote setting because I could focus, because I don't have to spend 2 hours commuting than when I was in office. But some people can't do that. And nowadays, I'm sure they could easily come into the office. It's kind of like remote work is like a benefit. It's a gift. Like if you can do it, great. If you can't do it, then you got to come into the office. But you shouldn't just be spying and monitoring people all day long, because that's just ridiculous. You shouldn't have an employee working for you that you can't trust. One in 10 say monitoring software is used to encourage return to office. 14% of respondents say their in-person employees are not subject to monitoring software, while 85% say their in-person workers are also subject to monitoring. Of this 14%, more than 2/3, about 1 in 10 of the total sample, believe that the fact that only remote workers have to be monitored is used to encourage employees to work in person more often. When asked why they believe this, write-in responses included: pursue higher work efficiency and team spirit. We can push each other to work. Telecommuting can make it difficult to communicate and collaborate with employees. The best way to increase productivity. And work matters can be better communicated, problems can be solved more easily, and the relationships between colleagues can be improved. Are these monitoring software and all these surveillance systems an attempt to get people to return to office? Absolutely. I mean, I know that we're seeing a bunch of layoffs in 2024, but that's what it all comes down to. They want you back in office. They want to be able to apparently stare at you even when you're have your head down working, and that's it. So we've seen a return to office mandate to avoid having to lay off as many people as they needed to, knowing that some people would only be able to work remote, that they moved to a place that they could actually afford a house, et cetera, et cetera. And now this is like, well, if we don't want us to monitor you, then you got to come back into the office. So that also makes a lot of sense. But what's interesting to me is how little the capability is of tech companies to use technology, because they always want to go to, well, we can collaborate better in person. Can you? I mean, there's some really good technology. I mean, you can run meetings, you can do everything in agile project management, you can collaborate. I mean, all these things can be done in a remote environment through technology. Like, it's not groundbreaking. Everyone thinks that they're masters of artificial intelligence, but they can't run a meeting remotely. That's dumb. Also, we can push each other to work. We're adults. If you can't get motivated to go out there and get your paycheck, you don't deserve it. So I don't understand that. It doesn't just come down to everything having to be eyeball to eyeball, nose to nose, toes to toes. There are other ways to get things done, and I get it, it's not for everybody. People have already let me know that some people just really love being in office, they love being in person, they love going to happy hours and spending not just their work hours, their 50, 60 hours a day or 50, 60 hours a week at office. They also want to do happy hour, they want to go on retreat, they want to do all that stuff. That's fine. But for me and people like me, we don't want to do that, and we shouldn't be forced to do that. And you certainly shouldn't be monitoring us all day long, especially at our house, because there are plenty of people out there who take remote work seriously, can get the job done, and be even more productive than they would be in-house, as they said. And those people shouldn't be punished, and definitely 100% should not be monitored in their home with a live camera, because that's not cool at all. Talk to you later.